Welcome to the Dragon's Library. Today we are going to be talking about one of the strongest nuke frames in the entirety of Warframe, Nezha. Whether you're a beginner or a veteran of Steel Path, I have a build for you. First, I'm going to quickly cover how you get Nezha. He can be easily obtained at your dojo by you putting down on the D-pad or whatever opens the menu for you on PC, going to research labs in the Tenno lab, and then after you're in your Tenno lab, which is going to take me a second because my PC is not necessarily the best, you go ahead and scroll down here, and then here is Nezha, his main BP, and then all his other BPs. All his components are 15k, so that's 45, plus another 35, so 70k in total there, or roughly 70k. And then you just have to get the ingredients for his BPs, but that is how you get base Nezha. Now we are going to go ahead and move on to his kit. Okay, now we are going to go ahead and get into the first of Nezha's skills, or I guess technically not a skill, his passive. This boosts his slide speed by 60% and how far he slides by 35%. Okay, now we are going to talk about Nezha's first. This scales off strength, duration, and range. And what this ability does is, whenever you pop it, as you can see here, you leave a trail of fire behind. At base, I believe the duration is around 10 to 15 seconds. I would have to go double check the stats. And it has one augment. That augment reads as follows: accumulate 250% of the damage Firewalker deals, unleashing it in a trail of fire that lasts 10 seconds. So pretty much it scales up the damage and makes it last just 10 seconds. Which means, as far as I can tell, means that it removes its scaling based on duration, but I could be wrong, could just lower the duration scaling. But either way, this is the subsume slot. This is what you're going to subsume over. It is by far Nezha's worst ability. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about his next ability. Okay, now we're going to be talking about Nezha's second ability here, Blazing Chakram. Blazing Chakram scales off mainly strength and duration, and how it works is, whenever you throw it, you can... Oh, I missed it that time. Whenever you throw it, if you tap it again, you can teleport it, and it will ricochet between enemies, putting heat procs on all the enemies that it's hitting. It can be useful to work with his fourth, which is his strongest, that we'll get to a little bit later on. But generally speaking, we just use it as a instant travel tool, as I said, where you throw it and then you teleport to it, kind of like Wrathful Advance if you've ever played Kalervo. Now we are going to go ahead and talk about Nezha's third. Nezha's third is Warding Halo, and it's one of the best scaling defensive tools in the entire game, because whenever you first cast it, you get 3 seconds of immunity, and all of the damage taken during those 3 seconds gets added to this health pool that you see on the side of my screen. Or, my bad, you guys can't see it, it's under my head. But, and pretty much what it does is, whenever you cast it, as I said, all the damage that's taken within the first 3 seconds gets multiplied by 250% and gets added to the total health, meaning that this scales strongly, even all the way up to level cap. It can seem like it's a little weak at first, but as soon as you get anywhere near high levels, it becomes much, much stronger. And just generally speaking, it's one of the strongest defensive kits in the game. It's not going to make you immortal, but it can make you darn close with 90% damage reduction and armor increases that scale based on strength. And then it also applies stun and stuff to the enemies, scaling based on range. It also has an augment. The augment for wording Halo reads as follows. Can now be cast on allies with 50% effectiveness. So pretty much what this does is it changes wording Halo to be effective on a group of enemies. Or sorry, not enemies, a group of teammates. So it kind of works the same as Revenant's augment, where his Mesmer skin stacks get put on everybody, except it has a stronger negative. I don't recommend using this because most of the time your teammates won't need to worry about dying because Nezha's already going to be killing everything, but we'll get into that when we get into his main damage ability, which is his fourth. Okay, now we are going to go ahead and talk about Nezha's fourth. At a baseline, it's okay. Pretty much what it does is, I'm going to have to spawn some enemies real quick to show you, but it impales enemies at in a radius of scaling based on range. Initially, it just does puncture damage and stuns the enemy based on range. These aren't the best examples, but they're kind of what I already had picked, so I didn't worry about it. But as you can see there, it spears the enemies, and then they will be stunned in place for the duration. Now, where this becomes strong is when we use the augment divine retribution. And what this allows us to do is, whether it be with blazing chakram, a melee weapon, or my personal preference, Temple Subsume, the Flame Pillars, or Dante's Subsume, you can scale it exponentially, because what it does is for every enemy you hit with a status effect while they're impaled, right? At the end of the duration, it makes all the DOT happen at once. A. B, every enemy that's hit, it gets multiplied over to the other enemies. So the more enemies that are hit and the more enemies you're hitting with either Temple's ability or Dante's ability, which is the reason you pick them is because they're AoE abilities, it multiplies that by how many enemies you're hitting, right? So in the case of Temple's Pillars, it's going to be 7 or 8 enemies getting hit. And then these are going to be multiplying against each other, making it exponentially stronger and hitting millions upon millions of damage. Or with Dante slash procs, it's pretty much doing the same, though I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. But now I'm going to go ahead and get into the builds. You do not have to have all of the Archon shards I have here. This is overkill. The only ones that you necessarily need are, you're going to want either 2 Tau or 3 non-Tau casting speeds if you're a Steel Path player. If you're not a Steel Path player, I would recommend trying to get your hands on at least 1, maybe 2 untau yellows to put on here. But casting speed makes this feel a whole lot stronger and a whole lot better to play. But it's, I guess, a little bit more of a necessity than necessarily needed. But now let's go ahead and get into the Steel Path build first, which is this one. First, we have Fleeting Expertise and Overextended. These both come from the Deimos node that has the Orokin Vault. Forgive me, I do not know the name at the moment, but I will go ahead and look it up afterwards and insert it here. But now we're going to go ahead and talk about Equilibrium. You get Equilibrium pretty easily now. This comes from the teacher quest. If you haven't done it and you still don't have this, go ahead and do it. Next, we are going to go ahead and talk about Divine Retribution here. This can be obtained just like any of his other augments by either going to Steel Meridian or Cephalon Suda. Or it can also be obtained via trading. The average price for Divine Retribution, just like all the other augment mods, going to be sitting at around 10 plat. Should be pretty easy to make no matter your skill level. But if you guys want an individual plat guide or something, let me know. And also, if you've made it this far in the video, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps. Now, we are going to also talk about one of his other augments. I'm pretty sure I talked about this one earlier, but if I didn't, I will talk about it now. Controlled slide. This is pretty much just power drift, but it costs less. I don't necessarily like Nez's passive all that much, so I just use this, and it also saves me a forma. If you like Nez's passive, just take this off and put on power drift here. But this isn't even really necessary. It's just a little boost to strength. Fleeting expertise, note for this. You don't necessarily need to have it upgraded all the way. Pretty much what you want this for, not the efficiency, even though the efficiency is nice. You want this for the negative duration, because the faster you can get his spears up and back down, the faster you can kill enemies, because the faster that DOT will pop. But I will show that to you guys later. This is also part of the reason why casting speed is so strong as well. This with casting speed makes it scale extremely well. Next, I am going to go ahead and talk about the arcanes. Arcane Energize, or any arcane that boosts how much energy you get. Alternatively, if you have a lot of Archon shards laying around, you can always do Equilibrium Archon shards and replace this with something else that boosts range or strength. You don't want to buff duration. There's a reason duration's the way it is. If you need your duration not to be as low as mine, some people might prefer it a little higher. Don't max out your fleeting. Next, Molt Augmented. There isn't really a way around this one. You don't necessarily need it. You can probably get away without it, at least if you're not going to level cap or something, but there isn't really another strength mod that works as well as this one for this build. But this is the Steel Path build. Now let's go ahead and get into the beginner build here. Corrosive Projection. Doesn't need to be Corrosive Projection. Any aura mod that will boost your energy works here. Augur Secrets. Augur Secrets can be just obtained from Earth Bounties. Same with Augur Reach. Should be relatively easily obtainable. Intensify and Flow. Just general drop pool. And I believe one or both of them also can be obtained from Teacher. Equilibrium, same story. Tip, if you're a new player and you are struggling to obtain this or level up Syndicate, just go farm an Earth Bounty, get an extra Augur Secrets, and sell it. You should be able to buy Divine Retribution with the plat you get from that. Augur Secrets will sell because there's going to be other new players who won't want to grind for it. Alternatively, there is also the Cha-Ching option, but I don't recommend spending cash, but it is there. Next, arcanes. Anything's fine until you hit Steel Path. After you hit Steel Path, these matter a whole lot more, but for base game, these should all just be fine. I mentioned the subsumes earlier. I always recommend going over Firewalker. It's a pretty much useless skill compared to all his other options. Temple's subsume being the flame pillars, or Dante's subsume being the slashes are my two recommendations here. I will go ahead and put in the names of those two abilities right here because I was too lazy to look it up beforehand. My bad. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and start by showcasing the Steel Path build. Oh, let me take off my companion so you guys know that it's not being skewed by that. Okay, there we go. My companion is now off. I hit these guys earlier with the lighter build, but I'm not gonna respawn them. If you look at their HP, they have like no damage taken. As you can see, these are pretty much the strongest Steel Path units in the game that don't have damage attenuation, and it just absolutely shreds them. And this is also on Steel Path, I believe. Okay, yeah, this is on Steel Path. You just go ahead and pop that. You armor strip with Temple's ability here. And Then after their armor stripped and they're getting spiked, they'll stay on the spikes longer. And it will pretty much just start killing. You have to be careful about energy. I forgot to get close enough to pick it up after killing all the other enemies. You'll normally be fine, but you do just have to watch out for it. If you're not running flow and stuff, that is. But there is them. Okay, and now I'm going to show you the beginner build. So for the beginner build, I took off fleeting expertise just because it's easier to show you without it, and you're probably not going to want it for the beginner build unless you really want that efficiency. And then you're going to want a status primer. My choice for this is the Compressa, but you also have the Kuva, the Epitaph. Any weapon that's really good at spreading statuses around, it doesn't necessarily have to be a secondary. And pretty much what you do is, I'm going to go ahead and show you on some corrupted heavy gunners here. These are pretty strong enemies, but they're not overguarded. You pop spears, you go ahead and you go ahead and shoot this around, and then as you can see, all them status effects spread to all the enemies and instantly blew up the second I brought it down. Keep in mind, if there's overguarded enemies and or Exami for the beginner build, this is not going to instantly kill them until you get off that overguard where it can stab them. The Steel Path build I showed you on Eximus because it has such high damage with the subsume, it can just make it work. But if you don't have a subsume, it's not going to work as well on super strong XMI targets. You'll probably still be able to shred your regular XMI and everyday missions just fine, but stronger XMI units are not going to be melted like butter. But this will kill every single ad in every area that you're in, and it just has ungodly range, and it will just shred everything once you get a good primer to go with the build. Okay, well, that is it for the two builds I have for you guys. If you guys want any more builds, such as the one for Daggett, I'm going to go ahead and pop up here in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and link you the Daggett vid and a playlist that has some more of those. I hope you watch them if you liked this one. Have a good day. Bye.